This is Jonathan Lane from FanFilmFactor.com with a special BBC edition of our program. Today we have two prominent Star Trek fan filmmakers from the United Kingdom. The first one on my upper left is Mr. Samuel Cockings, who has created visual CGI effects for so many different fan films, including his own, that I truly suspect that he is indeed a tall Oompa Loompa. Then, on my upper right, we have Mr. Nick Cook from Dundee, Scotland, who has been running the show Intrepid since your grandfather was in diapers. His crew, all Scotsmen and Scotswomen, speak with an accent that reminds us that Mr. James Doohan, who played Chief Engineer Montgomery Scott, was indeed only pretending to have an actual Scottish accent. So, speaking of pretending to have an accent, I'm going to stop talking like this because it's actually ridiculous. I sound like I don't know, Monty Python sketch, don't I? Anyway, I've been practicing that all morning. That was the best I could do. I don't know how you guys manage to pull off your accents because I can't do it.
A lifelong practice.
Really, it absolutely is. Can you guys do American accents, by the way?
No.
No.
Yes,
how about you, Sam?
Although,
not today.
Having said that, when I am in the States, I do get more of an American twang when I'm speaking to American people.
Because you know what, my son has a friend who's originally from London, and his mom, who is like totally, total London accent. I mean, she was raised in, born and raised in England, and she does an American accent, and it's like one of those, like, Walking Dead or whoever else has like an accent, and it's just pretending not to have one, and you're like, holy crap, they're really British, and like, yeah, yeah. So she does that. It just like, okay, I cannot fake being a Brit. It just doesn't happen.
I can't do accents at all. Terrible accents.
Well, you don't have to. Anyway, so the reason that we have Sam and Nick together is that Sam and Nick together just released a fan film by the name of Pursuit of a Dream. And it is not the dream of having an American accent. It is the dream of finding the Takan Empire, which you folks may remember as being from the very early Star Trek: The Next Generation episode, The Last Outpost. Anyway, this was a really, really good little fan film. It was technically an Intrepid fan film that was written by both of you guys, right?
No.
No?
We share the credits very evenly in very different ways.
Okay, well, let's start with that. How did this come to be?
So Sam had been suggesting he would like to come up and direct a film for us, and I was quite keen to do that because we'd been working together on a few things already, and I just thought we both thought it would be a good idea. So I've got some current scripts that are kind of outstanding, and also, but I think we decided let's produce something new for Sam to direct, and
well,
we kind of have to tailor it. Sorry, only go.
Well, the biggest trouble with Intrepid is that your cast is broad, and therefore if one person can't attend, a shoot gets cancelled. And that had been a problem for the 3 years of knowing each other. I often heard those things. And so when he said we could take a pre-existing script, I thought, or let's make something we can actually film together in the set amount of time we have, and as much creative flair as possible. I think my original pitch was how many visual things can we put in that make sense logistically with all the things we have access to and give enough visual flair for such a short amount of time. It's kind of initial push of what can we do.
So we knew we had about a day we would have about a day to shoot this. In actual fact, we shot over about 2 days. We shot the green screen stuff down at Sam's in Bedford, and we shot the exteriors up in Dundee, a place called Tensmere Forest. The story, basically, we both kind of hopped on Skype and kind of batted a few ideas back and forth. And I think, I can't remember who thought of what, but we basically came up with this kind of idea for a Groundhog Day scenario where it resets because Hunter doesn't remember that he's had this experience before. He gets his mind wiped. And then I had to go away and actually come up with a script. So I kind of sat on it for about 3 or 4 weeks thinking, I have no idea what I'm doing. And then suddenly something clicked. And I think I churned it out in about a week. bounced to Sam, did a little polish on it, and then that was it. Really, there wasn't an awful lot of work went into that script. So it was fun to write, to be honest, and it came together pretty quickly.
And that was with a
Sometimes, you know what it
dedicated
is?
week.
It's like you get this kind of writer's block, and you just can't come up with the right idea, and then all of a sudden something just clicks, and it just comes pouring out.
Well, with filming dates looming, you didn't really have much of a choice because both, we had a Trek Shorts weekend booked because you're on a holiday, which is kind of unusual for you actually. And we thought, okay, well, let's get you down for a Trek Short shoot, do some great markers, which ended up being really good. Actually, it was a 4-day shoot for me. And then I had 3 days. Then I flew to Scotland to see Nick again and do his half. And it's like, we got to write both in time and we're going to have the cameos because we were seeing everyone that weekend. So it was kind of opened up to, well, what do we have access to within this 9 days? So it was fully shot and created in 9 days.
Oh, yeah. With
all the people involved, except all the Hidden Frontier cameos. It was a hell of a thing. But I remember thinking that I think I suggested doing the resetting time element because it allows you to feel like you have more actors because you're resetting each time. But then you added the Tacon and all that really deep lore stuff, which really brought it to life. So I think I'm a bit more concept, and you did everything else, and just made it really feel poignant. And really, as a scriptwriter, that lets the thing sing. Those last few paragraphs really speak to you after a really good build. So it's definitely well written, even if short.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I most like, I mean, I love this fan film. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did. I mean, I support all fan films, but it's just like, okay, it's going to be another person in a shuttlecraft. We've seen that from Sam quite a bit lately because you do that incredibly well. But no, this was really, this showed a character arc, a character growth for Hunter, because he starts off, all young and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and by the end, he's been through a lot of crap. We've kind of seen his life without seeing his life, which is kind of fun. And those people who have been following Intrepid, obviously Nick has been playing Daniel Hunter since your grandfather was in diapers. In fact, we've seen the various uniforms, and we've seen the various people that you've interacted with over the years, and we've seen your character grow and mature. So that was also fun. Although I do have to say one little thing. So in the DS9 era, late DS9 era uniform, I couldn't see the pips on there.
Oh.
Was that purposeful?
No, it's just the way. There's some scenes where they're visible and some scenes where they're not. It's just the way the jacket was sitting.
Because I was wondering, is that cap? Because you were a captain earlier on, so you should have still been a captain, right? Or were you the commander?
Every time we swap rank, every time.
So he starts as a lieutenant, jumps to a commander in Voyager era, and then jumps to a commander in Dominion War era, and then when we see him at the end, he's a captain.
Okay, so commander Dominion War era, but weren't you a captain in the Dominion War era?
No.
Or okay,
post Dominion War.
We were very careful with timelines, including how it fits into my Trek Shorts timelines. It was very specific.
Yeah,
I wanted him to invent new stuff. Like, well, I'm asking, where would you be 15 years ago? He's like, oh God.
There were a lot of questions about this, and it's interesting because when I first started work on Intrepid, I did write bios up for a lot of the characters, but stuff's evolved over time, and I had to go back and hold files out and go, actually, maybe that doesn't work, and I had to tweak a lot of things to make all this fit. I think it came together pretty well. I'm surprised how well it came together, to be honest.
Now, when you say 9 days, you're talking about 9 days from the point where Nick finally got the script written to the point where you filmed, right? I mean, didn't it take you 9 days to also do the visual effects, did you?
Well, no, 9 days from the first shoot day. He left Bedford. I went to Scotland, second shoot day.
Oh, okay. So
Nick had all the footage within 2 weeks after he sent it over. So he got the assemble edit very quickly done. It was just a case of visual effects and the de-aging, all the other things that are time intensive.
Yeah, I mean, there was a rough cut of the film done within probably about a week of shooting it. Maybe 2 weeks. And then when we shot this, there was no perception on, I don't think either of our parts at the time that we would de-age any of this.
It wasn't even feasible.
I think it wasn't until I sent the first rough cut to Sam, if I remember rightly, you said, actually, I think I can de-age in this.
Well, I didn't tell you for a while. I played with it.
Yeah.
And then I achieved it. And then I showed you and I said, I'll do it for the rest of it. You're like, okay. Yeah. And it totally changes the film.
Oh, yeah.
Totally changes the concept.
I was kind of saying, gee, Nick looks good as I was first trying to watch this, and like, no, he doesn't look as good. You DH'd.
Well, I
still look good.
You still look good, man.
I did joke to Nick at one point that we should totally have said that this is a found footage film, that he filmed this stuff in the early 90s, and then we managed to piece it all together. Which
So
some people would believe it, maybe.
So did you DH him like the same kind of stuff that they DH Skywalker and Q with? Is that the same kind of stuff, or is it like a
exactly? Well, I mean, how effective do you think it is as it goes? What would you say, Jonathan?
Oh, I think it looked great. I think the only, and I told you this on a on our chat, that the only thing you might have wanted to do to DH him is also just like a little black spray paint. But
I think had I known, and actually, to be honest, had we had more time to do this, I would have shot the exteriors over 2 days, and I probably would have colored my hair, and I probably would have considered getting a hairpiece, to be honest, just for those 2 earlier scenes. But it just wasn't practical in the time we had. I wish it had been, because I think that would have been a nice thing to do. But it is what it is.
But also makes it canon that he kept his same hair. Exactly the same, he kept his same hair color, give or take, for 20 years. It's pretty good. Same hair length.
I mean, I certainly didn't have so much white hair when I was like 20 years younger, but apart from that,
yes, I didn't that in
have nearly so much of a bald patch either. But yeah.
But no, it's an interesting process. It was definitely not something we expected to do, although really functionally to write it and not have it, it would have felt like the same scene more. Yeah. So by having the difference, although I do say, having watched the final version a few times, your brain doesn't, unless you know Nick really well, you don't think it's de-aging. Only when you get to the end, you might think, okay, it looks older. The trick is then go back to the start, restart instantly, say, oh, damn. Because it does sort of have this natural, it is more subtle than it needs to be, because it's meant to be a real face. We could have made it like a baby face,
One of the funny things is, one of the early de-ages you did, you sent me a still of me in the TNG costume. And I actually showed this to one of my friends, because I had it downloaded on my phone. I said, look at this. He went, oh, that's an old one. I was like, no, it's not. He's like, huh? Yeah. So, I mean, and I have to say, it looks pretty good on the video. It looks even better on stills. I mean, some of the stills Sam sent me earlier, I was like, holy cremola foam, that looks really good. So yeah, I mean, it's such a powerful tool. Which Sam's now using a lot in a lot of films coming up, which involves me carrying far too many costumes down to Bedford. But hey,
Well, because the pure fact is, Intrepid was fantastic for exploring this period of time. But if this is a thing we can utilize, and he already has the highest quality of costumes, and we both have the props of every era, well, you would never have considered going back as you're getting oldest to your youngest point. But creatively, narratively, a flashback is a real flashback. It feels like a real thing. I personally adore de-aging in movies, in Marvel. Seeing Luke, etc. Like that creatively brings us such a dimension back. There's a silliness in one of the Marcus films where Marcus plays Sam Harriman. He was in Temporal Anomaly when he was in his late 30s. He's now in his late 40s, getting to 50, and so he played 20 when he was 30. He played late mid 20s. And now he's playing 18 when he's 40 with me. So I made him go younger while he's older. But I can do it now, and it helps tell stories.
It's interesting as well, because you did do a de-age on Marcus for that shuttle scene.
But he's younger than Temporal,
and it's really subtle, and it looks really good.
Yeah,
it adds something to the story,
And absolutely, it's fun. It's fun for us, who have seen all these fan films, and obviously I've been watching Nick slowly age, as we all do over the years. And it's nice to, have the young Nick back, just as it was nice to, have the young Q back, for just that quick moment before he ages back to current John Delancey. So
I will comment though that that's half of the work. It's obviously the dialogue, but the Nick's performance, he did successfully manage to feel different. He was able to bring something new, and it did help. We filmed it in chronological order, give or take, and evolve the performance. Obviously, I directed him to try and produce this, but it does, they blend together. If you watched say the second and the last scene together, you'd think, oh no, he's older, not just because of the face. There is a real acting. I think Nick did a really phenomenal performance, probably one of his best, and
yeah, did a great job.
All the things come into that.
What was the tool that you were using to do the de-aging?
Several tools, and that's the tricky thing.
Okay, is this a magician is not going to reveal his trick?
It is this time, yes.
Okay.
But it does help to have a powerful PC, as you can imagine.
Yeah, because everything with Sam takes up most of his PC computing power. Anyway, sorry, Nick, to interrupt you.
On that first scene, I did try to play him much more as a kind of young, squeakier
Brat.
idiot than he, kind of matures into, as opposed to an older, squeakier idiot. But
Well, the fact is that it really you could see that evolution going through there. So let me ask a question, because Sam is the director. When Sam directs you, Nick, how much of that is Sam bringing out that performance from you, and how much of it is saying, well, I know what I'm doing, so shut up?
Oh, it's definitely very much a combined process. It's very much a mutual process, insofar as, when I have a direct, because funnily enough, on Intrepid, people don't often tell me how to perform stuff, which I'm not sure is entirely the right way to go. I think Laura, who's directing for us at the moment, is much more inclined to do that, but Steve often hasn't told me how to act things, and I kind of wish he would, to be honest. But Sam is very much kind of like, no, I want this from you. And it's interesting working on Sam's trick shots, because I'll go in and I was like, well, Hunter would do it like this, and so I'm like, no, I want this. I'm like, okay, fine. Oh, yeah. So it's very much a mutual process. It's very much working together. And I think that's a beneficial thing, because, as a writer, you always feel actors see things and pull things out of scenes that you didn't even see when you were writing it. And directors also do the same thing. So, I mean, you'll write something and, 3 different people find things in it. I didn't think of it that way. It's a fun process. And I like that creative mutual energy that's going on between everybody involved.
And also, I'm very proud of one of the few directors of Intrepid, just to say that.
That's true. You do have a couple of other directors. I have to say, by the way, having now observed directing happening, I agree that a director should direct the actors. And there's a lot of fan filmmakers who are like, they know the characters, just let them do it, because they know it better than I do. And I understand that the director has a vision, and in a lot of ways, the actor is a tool that the director uses to create the story. And for the director not to use the tool at his disposal or her disposal, seems like a waste. And there's a wonderful story that Nick Meyer told, the director of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, of Ricardo Montalban, who had arrived on set pretty much as on the first day of filming. They didn't have time to rehearse with him because he was still doing Fantasy Island at the time. So he was able to get there on the first day. So they got him into, costume, makeup, and everything. And they blocked out the shot. There's like 6 marks he has to do. And it's the long speech where, Khan is talking to Chekhov and Terrell. And so they've never really done a rehearsal of this before, and Meyer hasn't really explained to Montalban what he wants. So Montalban starts doing this rant. I mean, it was amazing, and the power, coming through. He's so angry, and he's hitting every single one of his marks. And I mean, you're, according to Nick Meyer, I mean, you're kind of crapping in your pants. He's so he's so angry about all this. That was not at all what Meyer wanted. And it's like, what the hell do I do? Because this is Ricardo Montalban. This is a man who, big Hollywood actor and a huge trained person. This was Meyer's first or second movie directing. Who's this guy? He's a TV director. So Nick, he tells the story. Nick Meyer, that is, says, okay, cut. Okay, everybody, let's just take 5. Ricardo, can I talk to you in your dressing room for a sec? So they go into the dressing room, and Nick says, I'm sweating bullets. I have no idea what to say, because you don't want to piss off your big star. And he's like, Ricardo, Laurence Olivier once said, you should never show the audience your top, your most, because you have like nowhere really to go from there. And Ricardo's like, yes. You're like, so let me ask you a question, Ricardo. When is a madman most terrifying? Is it when he's ranting, when he's at his most, or is it? And Ricardo finished his sentence and said, or when he's not. It's like, exactly. So rather than taking it up so far, say, oh yes, I see, draw it back. We keep it quiet because then you never know when he's going to explode. And it was exactly what Meyer wanted. And as they were about to go back onto the set, Ricardo said, I see. You are going to direct me. And apparently, Ricardo had been on so many films, on so many shoots where the director was like, you're Ricardo Montalban, you know how to play this. So just, give me your best and do it. And he hated that. He's like, I want to know, you tell me if I'm going too over the top. And Nick said from that moment on, like every time he would yell cut, Ricardo would always like, was that too much? He would always be thinking, should I take it down a little bit? And, so that's the kind of director that you can be with actors. I mean, granted, a lot of Star Trek fans are not necessarily actors, so they might not understand that concept. But if you have like either real actors or people who've done community theater at least or whatever, they want you to tell them what to do. So I realize I just hijacked the interview from you guys for a good 5 minutes, so I will do it back, I promise. But I love that story.
It's a great story, and I have to say it is a fair point. And in my experience, most actors do want to be told what to do. I mean, don't get me wrong, you go in, and especially if you know your character, you have an idea of what you want to do, and if there's anything that particularly you don't agree with, you're likely to speak up. But generally, actors want to be told what you want in a scene, and when a director doesn't do that, it makes things a little less synergistic.
Well, there's a perspective thing, because if I'm as camera operator as well, because I filmed everything as well, I'm the one seeing the exterior performance. You're hearing your voice through your own head. It's not exactly the tone. You can't see your eyes. You're not even conscious of all the choices you're making. Some are subconscious, some are just whatever you're doing. I'm seeing it both real life and through the camera. So, and I'm listening very intently. And because I'm very invested in this being a good project and have over a decade of experience in everything I'm doing here, let's make it the best it can be. And so and also we had a very quick shoot, and we got a lot done very quickly compared to other Intrepid shoots that we've talked about previously, that when I know I've got the good take, I'm good. I know exactly that's the take we could use. Now, Nick might then have used different takes, the edits. That's then his choice as editor to sort of override that. But I know that is a golden take. For whatever reason, I've got it, I can move on. Because I know as the editor brain, done. Even if I've then moved the camera wrong and I need to go back, etc. But it was interesting because I've mostly written my own scripts, and that was the first script I'd done that I hadn't done, but I was directing. And so my ability to be in control was a whole different ball game. And I remember in your living room, we brought Matt in, and obviously I had first time in your country with you, with Matt, and you're doing a read through, and the director of me says, I need to interact with this because I'm doing this all tomorrow. But they're doing a read through, and you're hearing them do it for the first time together. And I can either let them read it and have no interaction, or actually be a director, because that's why I'm here. And so we started bouncing off each other. I remember saying to Matt, no, try this instead. And it's very quickly we got into this flow of how it will feel. And we changed some lines, we worked out things, and it really was a good session of bringing it up one more level.
Now, let me ask you a question, Sam. When you say try this instead, now, one of the things about direction is the concept of the line reading. And as much as actors want to be directed, they do not want a line reading. They don't want the director to say, okay, deliver the line just like this, and then they do it. Because like, well, then why don't you perform and I'll be the director? They get pissed off about that. So you have to, present it like you presented the work to Ricardo Montalban, don't shout, take it low, but don't deliver the line like, oh, like this. Don't do it like that. So when you have to communicate what you have to communicate, how do you avoid giving them line readings as much as you might want to, or do you just give them line readings?
Yeah, I try to do that as little as possible, to the point of, if I mean, Nim has asked me, Nick has asked me occasionally, I kind of don't want to, because I don't know what I'm going to say until I say it. But I know when I get it from the actor, because often it's just a variation of what they're doing. I think one of the lines in particular with Matt, it was more a case of he doesn't quite understand all the context of every scene because he's not as big a Trek fan as me or Nick. And so there's sub layers to all these things. And while maybe he doesn't need to know the Klingon X, Y, and Z, but I do know. And I'm like, yeah, but you could play a bit more sass or a bit more, I think I said sharp with Nick a few times, a bit more sharp, a bit more crisp, a bit more whatever. And then suddenly it comes across. And we had one line on Sunday that Nick did. And the difference between the raw and the director was just, oh my God, the level just 10 times after one quick try, just a bit more this. Nick just nailed it beyond what I thought. And so it's more a case of try this vibe, you know, or I know that would edit well with this previous thing because you're texturally changing the vibe, you know, or like you need to really highlight the word dominion because that's the key word. Don't be saying the dominion here. No, emphasize dominion and then play it how you think, but with emphasize. So try and balance it. But I don't like line reading personally.
I think going back to something else that was said earlier as well, I've just blanked on what I was going to say. Crumbs.
Edit.
See, it's late at night there in the
point.
UK. No, this is fun. This is real. This is real. Yeah, you know, for me, it's noontime. I haven't even had breakfast yet, and these guys just had dinner. So I love the fact that the world is round and it rotates.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So sorry. Yeah. So what Sam was saying about being able to see the performance with the camera and see what we're doing, that is a very, very valid point because you don't know how it comes across. You can hear it in your head, but you don't see it. So having that feedback is really, really good. And also, I mean, I've been in the situation where I've come back, put footage on the computer, and when I've been on screen and I've looked at it and I've gone, oh, that's terrible. Why did somebody not tell me? So actually, yeah, I mean, I think having the director there to give you that instant feedback and able to give you that instant feedback and willing to give you that instant feedback is really crucial.
How would you describe by directing different any other directors you've had? How would you describe the differences? Everybody
I've worked with has been different. From stuff on Intrepid to working on, you know, bits and pieces with Hidden Frontier, Polaris that we worked on years ago that still isn't finished. No comment. You know, they're all different. And Sam's very much a little bit more of a wing it director in some ways. And I don't mean that he's unprepared, but he really does fly a little bit by the seat of his pants in how
he's not what the rest of the interview sounded like, did it? But it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's a little more. Whereas I've worked with Steve Hammond a lot, and Steve is very, very hands off with his actors. He's very much more about the visual image, less concerned about performance. He likes to let the actors kind of find their own vibe, and you know that often works, and sometimes it doesn't work. Again, Hidden Frontier, a whole other kind of kettle of fish. Yeah, I mean, Sam's a little bit more freewheeling than some, but much more organized than some as well. Yeah.
I didn't really use a tripod.
Those sound like contradictory things, but they're not.
I didn't use a tripod. I was moving the actors. We were inventing our locations as we were going, and I had to distinctly have a vibe and a sense and make each one interesting. Because how do you make a forest interesting, different, the same 5 times in a row with an evolutionary narrative? I did it.
I mean, we literally shot each of those scenes within like about less than 5 minutes of each other. Like
a brisk walk, though.
Yeah, we all picked different looking locations. They're all slightly different, but I mean, they were, you know, you could walk them all in 5 minutes.
It's obviously the same planet, you know, and was that someplace near Bedford that you were shooting?
No, the exteriors were near Dundee.
Oh, okay. So you went to him.
That was the big deal about. He came to my thing, green screen. We went Scotland to make it a true Intrepid film because that's their thing, and I wanted it to be a fully Intrepid. I'm just there to direct and film, and then I didn't have any real anything in the edit except some as a technical maybe tweak this. But I was like, "Yep, it's your film. You do the footage however you want."
Now, when you said you didn't use a tripod, you used a tripod in the green screen.
Yes, I mean the live action stuff. Yes.
I was going to say no. Sam's got a very steady hand.
Yes.
Nick,
don't breathe when you're doing.
Nick, you know that tricky shot that we did with the person we can't talk about yet? That was freehand. I did it. I tracked it. Yay. It worked.
Okay.
I know exactly the shot you mean.
I'm very happy with myself. Sorry.
Well
That's
done.
right. Okay. Now, I wanted to talk about some of your guest stars. Obviously, there were two major ones. Well, one very unexpected. I mean, I did not. I wasn't completely unsurprised. Or wasn't completely surprised. I don't know what I'm saying. It was not entirely surprising to see Nim playing Keeley because she's working with Sam a lot lately. But what was a very, very pleasant surprise coming out of retirement was Risha Denny playing her old Hidden Frontier character of Elizabeth
Hasn't
Shelby.
aged a day.
She really hasn't. Is that another de-aging thing, or you're not going to say anything? Because she did look
Basically,
marvelous.
Rob shot that footage for me years ago.
He shot that for you that many years ago? Really?
Yeah.
What, 6 plus,
So-
7 plus?
Oh yeah, easily. So one of our films that ended up on the chopping block because actually we just couldn't tackle it, and there were a number of factors, and then guidelines fell, and there's a number of reasons I kind of abandoned this film. But there was a couple of scenes with Shelby and Hunter, and Rob shot that footage for me like quite a few years ago, and it's been sitting on my hard drive all that time, and I was like, it would be great to use some of that footage in this. So I did. I
That's cool.
crafted that scene around the footage I had of Risha, and I still have footage that remains unused, which will show up
And
eventually.
I digitally HD'd it using my
Oh,
techniques.
and the upscaling on that is incredible. I mean, it
Oh, it
looks
looks amazing. Yeah.
like it looks fantastic. The only small point I put on it is that in this time frame, Shelby's a captain, whereas if you look hard enough, you can see she's wearing her admiral's bars, but nah.
Although, as you said to me on the walk back to the hotel the other day, the bigger fine point is this Hidden Frontier continuity or not?
Well, someone asked me
that's
that
a bigger
recently.
point.
Someone did ask me that recently, and I kind of feel that, and Rob and I have had discussions about things. I know Rob has said that he feels that Hidden Frontier is kind of an alternate timeline. My feeling is Intrepid takes place in that, and Hidden Frontier probably also takes place in Prime, but some of the outcomes are different. So some of our stuff is probably Hidden Frontier canon, and some of it is probably not. And it's all multiversal
It's a fan
nonsense.
Film.
Yeah.
I mean, how many
don't worry
Captain
about
Kirks
that.
are there going to be? You know, when all is said and done. We all know that somebody has just been cast as Captain Kirk in Strange New Worlds. Used to be a vampire. And now everybody is, are all arguing.
Scatty.
Yeah. But everybody's arguing now because apparently there's captain's braids on Kirk's sleeves in the Pike era. So like, okay, exactly when did Kirk become a captain? Somebody sent me a video earlier on today and said that there's like this short period of time in like the 5 years or so before where no man has gone before, where apparently in the making of Star Trek in the backstory, Gene Roddenberry had suggested that Kirk had been given command of like a smaller vessel, like a destroyer.
Yeah, I think he mentions destroyer. Yeah, absolutely. I remember that myself.
Yeah. And so it's very esoteric, but it kind of makes sense that Kirk would be a captain before the Enterprise, because this is like a Constitution class heavy cruiser that you wouldn't give a first time captain, J.J. Abrams.
No comment.
Let him cut his teeth on a smaller ship where if it gets destroyed, we're not quite as, upset about ourselves at being idiots for giving him the starship. But anyway, we shall see. We've got another year before that happens. So,
well, he's certainly wearing a different emblem in some of the behind the scenes photos we've seen as well.
That's true.
Which is interesting. So, are they going to go back to the different ships having different assignment patches, or who knows?
Except, of course, that Discovery has the Delta and Enterprise has the Delta. So,
Or maybe they're going down the different fleets have different patches thing, because that has been suggested as well. So who knows? We'll find out in about a year or so, I guess.
Yep. And then the internet will go crazy because half the people will think that's a great idea. The other half will
As
think
it always
you guys
does.
are idiots. And, Kurtzman has been fired 6 or 7 times, and this will probably be the 7th for, making this horrible thing. And this is the whole reason that the CBS or the Paramount stock price is plummeting. It's kind of funny because somebody had posted to Facebook, the Discovery had just done something horrible or whatever, and was pointing to the fact that the CBS, now Paramount stock price was plummeting, and I looked and it was actually up 7% that day. I just sort of took a screen cap of turns out it was going ex-dividend, which means it was paying out its dividend at the end of the day. So a lot of people wanted to get in for that. But it was just really funny. The person said, yeah, it's tanked. Like, well, it's actually up 7% today, which is a huge move. Like in a good market day, if you're up 1 or 2%, that's fantastic. 5% is usually like really, really big. Being up 7% is like something big happened. But anyway, all right, let's move from your most recent fan film to your other fan films. In the case of Sam, not your fan films, but your Sam films, you have a lot on your plate because you crowdfunded last year the Trek shorts.
5 films.
5 films.
5.
5 with one crowdfunder. And then, of course, what you decided to do was to release a whole bunch of films that weren't those 5.
3 films.
3 films that we did pay for, obviously. I was one of the donors. But we didn't really pay for because, we hadn't really signed up for those, but other things happened. So we'll talk about those for a couple seconds. And then Sam is also crowdfunded and is still in the production of, or pre-production of, or whatever it is, of Convergence, which was the big Avengers Assemble coming together of 5 different crossover fan film, fan series things. And then I also want to ask Nick at some point what's coming up on Intrepid next. But let's start with Sam, and let's start with Trek shorts. And okay, what the heck is going on?
I made some bonus films. One
Yes,
was a necessity during the Indiegogo, so that was great. That was with Marcus. A lot of these bonus, oh no, is because someone cancels or moves a date. Nick has been the reciprocant of several of those. Well, still come along anyway, especially when on a plane we hear news that someone can't come and he's a bit committed to that point. And when you spend money on food, on travel expense, on hotels, and it's all booked, and that's hundreds of dollars on films we haven't even talked about yet, it's you want to film something still, because it's so super redundant when the time has been booked, and obviously I've got a busy schedule, etc. And that's happened, I'm gonna say 8 to 9 times, and each time I sort of change the path to benefit of the future people that enjoy the shorts, but the downgrade of the budget, which is a big problem, and the downgrade of getting things we tried to get filmed. Because, like I say, if you we tried to film the Stargate one twice. The much of a spoiler there, Nick, for the one of the big ones, the big ones. But there's things that have happened accidentally, and there's a few that have happened deliberately. About only 3 that were like deliberate. Yes, we want to make some other big films because when you develop these small stories, you're forced to think about interconnectivity. Once you have the interconnectivity of how does new actor know Nick or Robin, well, now that connects here, and it becomes this big MCU style adventure where now, if you're co-writing and co-filming so many, then you can have a really, really good web of logic and of thought. It takes more time, takes more money, takes more effort, and certainly more days, but the end result is going to be superb. And I'm happy to say that, yes, we filmed almost everything of the 5. They might have taken longer because other things came in, but I think we're basically everything. Nick's wife has to film something for Doomsday. And then the Avalon team for the dad's film, but it's pretty much it. Everything else, I'm not going to say reshoots might not happen for Nim for X, Y, or Z reason, but for the most part, it's all shot, looks nice, and just trying to keep filming and getting stuff in the can as the budget goes into further minus numbers.
I wasn't planning on bringing this up, but I'm going to. I'm just going to hit you with this. So Sam obviously knows that his Doomsday is not the only Doomsday that's going to be coming out, because I've seen a rough cut of the one that's going to be coming out from Neutral Zone Studios. So you're going to have, and I only ask this because I have all of the fan films that I've covered listed alphabetically. And if I've got 2 fan films with the exact same name, I don't know which one to put first.
Well, mine's called Hours to Doomsday, so that's fine.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yours is Hours to Doomsday. Okay, so that's right. It's not just Doomsday, because I was going to say just perhaps you could do some different.
But yes, I've done the visual effects for 3 different Doomsday films. Vance's one, my one, and Ray's one. So 3 different dudes machines kicking butt.
Yep. So you're going to get a lot of the Planet Killer pretty soon. Uh, so the extra ones you did Hours at Warp with Marcus, and that was because you had a last minute cancellation from
We
Nim.
filmed Doomsday, and then he was on his way.
And there you go. Okay. So and one of your cancellations was because somebody got COVID.
Multiple times.
Multiple times.
Because if a family member gets it, they're also locked in. It's sort of anybody in the vicinity gets it, and that's it. You're done, sort of thing.
So yeah, it's kind of crazy. And in a lot of ways, actually, this most recent film, Pursuit of a Dream, was almost a pandemic film with the possible exception of Nick and what's the con guy Matt, but
Matt.
what's the name of the character? It's the
Guardian of Outpost 47.
Condescending Guardian of Outpost.
The condescending guy. Yes. So the Guardian. I mean, there's a couple of shots where the two of you are framed together, but obviously outdoors, so it's safer or whatever. But
I think we all tested anyway. I mean, we're all in the green anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting seeing fan films slowly come out of that pandemic thing. There's a lot more multiple people on set at the same time. And I know that here in America, it's getting a lot better, whereas in Europe, it's apparently getting a bit worse of late, right?
England's fine.
The numbers have definitely gone up here. Yeah.
Oh, they've gone up or gone down?
Up.
Okay.
Definitely.
So,
well, there's numbers and there's other numbers. I mean,
some numbers go up, some numbers go down.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So we're not quite done with it yet, and I'm kind of curious to see what happens. Next winter time when people start going indoors again, because that's what they keep saying. The virus spreads more when you're in small contained places without ventilation. So, but on the other hand, if you're filming at Warp 66 Studios or Kingsland, Georgia, and everybody's on the same set and there's no air circulation at all, and everybody's sweating bullets, then I hope everybody tested negative for COVID before that. Anyway. All right, so that's the first of Sam's many, many, many projects. The other project is Convergence. Now, you funded that at some point when your grandfather was in diapers. It's been going on for a few years. How's it doing?
Well, as you know, international travel became a no-no 2.5 years ago. And as I said before, we had the dates booked with every actor fully confirmed. I was about a week from booking flights and committing the money. And then I remember actually on Skype with Nick and said, is it going to be okay by August? Said in like February. Is it going to be okay? Maybe, it might get more expensive to book in a month or two, but let's just wait. And then 2.5 years passed. So now we're thinking about redoing. I talked to Marcus today about it, which is good. So we've got some good news on that, Nick. But now Robin's the problem. He's got not problem, but he's the issue with timing's got to get him. He's in multiple Trek shorts, and it's going to be a whole thing. But I mean, need to get international partners together. It's this is not a pandemic film. This is 6 people in one set on one location, all in the same scene. It's a big thing, and it's going to be a different film than what we planned. Not story wise, but the joke being is that when we originally pitched it, as you said earlier on, it was the Avengers of fan films, bringing together our legendary heroes. And we filmed half of it. It's a really great half. But then we paused the Trek shorts instead. Now we've seen the Black Widow solo movie. We've seen the Thor solo movie. We've seen all the different solo movies and all the co-movies. Now Nick and people know each other. And so all the personal connections of Convergence are totally different. They're actually on camera. They've actually been filmed. So we've got to rewrite the script to include all the interconnectivity, all the references, just like Malachor 6 and just these senses of it actually happened. So it'll be a different film, and it will genuinely be possibly the last thing we film for Trek shorts. And now, again, the actual big epic end of the story. Yeah, it's crazy. It's going to be great.
I mean, it's definitely ramping up to be a better film than it was.
Way more poignant, yeah.
And I don't mean that it was a bad film to begin with, but I think the interconnectivity, and actually we're adding at least one character, probably 2 characters into this.
It's bigger cast.
So it's a bit more diverse in its characters than it was, which is a nice thing.
And ironically, we can now cut to, if there's an emotional moment. Do you remember back when we were 30, cut to an earlier film where they're de-aged and they're 30? Like, you can generally do that because they're real things. Because we thought, okay, we'll do a cast change about a year and a half ago. And we started building these emotional ties, and Nick was one of the first people involved in that. So it's going to be fun and big. I've done, the space effects are still all done. And the interior sets, a lot of them are done, and it's going to be big. Just got to get them together. But we're hoping this summer. It's kind of the aim.
This summer to film it or release it?
Film it, yeah.
Film
get
it,
one together.
I mean,
I didn't think it was released.
Some of this is happenstance as well, because I think had oh god, what was the actor you had originally for this? I've forgotten his name. Jim
Van Jolson.
Had Jim been available for that weekend that we shot, we probably would have had this done and dusted before now. Like, at the time, I think we probably would have had it nailed.
Very possibly. More rushed, but yeah, possibly.
Yeah, but I mean, he wasn't available for that weekend. So it's like, okay, so we'll do this 2 shoots. Then later in the year, we'll get Jim over. And then it became a problem. Well, Jim's not available. And, we'd had a lot of discussions about this. And you managed to line somebody else up. And then that ended up not working out. And thanks to COVID and so forth. But I think what we've ended up with is probably a better end product than we would have had because of all that happenstance and bad luck, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, hey, it everything works out, for the best. I was talking to another fan filmmaker about this just yesterday, and unfortunately, he lost one of his main characters, and ultimately, losing her meant losing another actress who was also on the same fan series. And there's an upcoming episode where there's like this big fight scene that's involved. And there's like martial arts going on. And the second actress who left the series was supposed to be involved in it, but she was very, very small, very, very petite. And but she was certainly willing to do it. Anyway, in trying to replace these two actresses, and he's managed to do it. One of the actresses that is being brought on actually is the co-owner of a martial arts studio in Arkansas. Okay, now you know what I'm talking about. And anyway, and she could basically, she's like a female Chuck Norris. And she's an actress. I mean, she's has professional training. She's done theater. She's done, I think, commercials. But she's also a martial artist. So it's like, okay, you lose 2 major actresses from your fan film, your fan series, and yet you manage to ultimately replace one of them with an actual martial arts actress to play a martial arts character. And so that, it's like, okay, the universe works in strange ways, and you get lemons and you make lemonade, and, maybe you will make a little lemon out of it.
I do think it's fair to say that we've already produced 3 full bonus shorts, 4, Long Way From Home, 2 Trek, and 1 Stargate, all of which were unexpected off the back of Convergence into Go-Go, and then this one. That's already full content, free content, fun to enjoy, with lots more. And because we raised that budget to buy the costumes to expand to do more things. So yes, it might have been a 4-year wait for a very specific reason for one project, but the fandom is going to get a lot of good stuff with a lot of diverse things. And because I've been able to do all the CG myself in terms of interiors, it's all going to be the same high standard rather than relying on other team members. So it's going to be a very consistent feel, which I'm really excited about. And I will get to the point I can release stuff several times a year for several years. And that's great. I mean, this, Pursuit is a bonus Indiegogo short for Nick as well, which is the next question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Which transitions us perfectly to asking what else is in development for Intrepid.
So at the moment, we're about halfway through filming the film that we crowdfunded for. COVID kind of kicked us into kind of a holding pattern for that one. And also a lot of our cast have been quite difficult to schedule the last few months. So we have finished all our interiors. We've started the exteriors. We started late last year. Now I'm just waiting for the weather to improve and a couple of cast to be, one in particular to be available, who has moved away but will be back to do this role. So probably May, June, we'll have this one wrapped up, and that'll be Echoes, which will probably come in about 35-ish minutes or so. But that's shaping up to be quite a nice film. There might be some disconnect between some of the footage we shot initially and some of the footage we shot since, because the first shoots we had for interiors were shot with a completely different camera, and now we're working with another cameraman who's got much better gear. So, some of the stuff might not be to the same standard as the rest, but I think overall it'll be a pretty good film. And I think the story between the two characters, there's one character in particular this story revolves around, but I think the story with her and this intrepid character will actually be quite a nice story. And I think they'll carry it very well. And we'll have some nice exteriors to show off. So yeah, so I think probably next year before that's finished. In the interim, I'm working on a couple more shorts. One of those I mentioned, footage Rob shot with Risha. So I rewritten that big script into a 15 minute short. That may sound ridiculous, but the way I've written it, it should work. And I'm hoping to maybe shoot this early May. I've been talking about to the cast that will be involved with that. So we'll hopefully shoot that before we crack on and do the exteriors for Echoes. I also have an unnamed short that is well into post-production. I'm just waiting on 3 effect shots, one of which Sam's doing.
I may have increased the scope of that, as I said to you before.
Yeah, and 2 which Henry Gibbons is working on for me. One of which I've got a draft of in hand, and it looks great. And then there's just one scene, one clip in particular, and then it just goes off to Dylan Feeney for sound work, scoring. I need to do some ADR for that one, because we shot this in San Francisco, and we really did do it guerrilla style. Anyway, that's an untitled shot. I'm not going to say what the name of it is because it gives the whole game away, but it's very different for us. Very, very different type of film for us. So I think that one will be quite fun. But
it's cool that you shot in San Francisco, though. I mean,
we shot it in San Francisco. Maurice Molyneux, who worked on Tresorian Intersection with Stash Baxter, has been a friend of mine for years. He's a really nice guy, and a filmmaker in his own right. We were visiting San Francisco. He said, "You should shoot a short while you're here." Okay, so it was him who came up with the idea for this and the script, and he shot it for us. So, and it was complete guerrilla film work. Yeah, and it's a lot of fun, actually. It is a fun little short.
Well, I would love to film in San Francisco at some point, any kind of Star Trek fan film. But there's this one spot, if it's not too windy, that I found many years ago. I had gone up to San Fran. It was actually right before Gay Pride weekend. My friend was going to be marching in the parade, so I was staying with him now or her. Anyway, I went to try to take a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge at night, and I wanted to get the city behind it. And so if you go to the Marin side and you take a picture back towards the city, it's fantastic. Great shot. And anyway, the wind was just blowing like ridiculously. So, if you're shooting that late at night, you can't have your camera moving. You need a long exposure. And so I walked up the trail, and I finally found a place that was blocked from the wind, but it was also blocked from the bridge, because you went too far around, and now suddenly the path has gone around, and there you're kind of shooting, like you get like a tiny little sliver of the bridge. Like, okay, this is not going to work. I'm like, where else can I be? And the light's getting lower. I'm like, oh man. And I looked down off the trail, and about maybe 15, 20 feet below the trail is what's known as a battlement. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's kind of like a little concrete bunker.
I think I know what you mean, actually.
Yeah, and that's usually that was where they had the cannons in case the Japanese were to come into San Francisco Bay. So anyway, I get onto it, and it's probably like about, I don't know, maybe 15 feet by 15 feet square, but it's flat, and it was completely protected from the wind. And I was able to set up the tripod on this wonderful and take these great shots of the bridge. But anyway, I would love to be able to film there, because you're kind of like so far away that nobody's going to know that you're there, and you could just like sort of do a beam down or a beam up, and you got the great San Francisco in the background or whatever, and you could just have them there, and like you don't have a whole bunch of people gaping at you because you really can't see it too well from the trail.
Yeah.
But anyway, not enough fan filmmaker groups in San Francisco in the Bay Area, unfortunately.
Yeah, we were just lucky we were in the right place at the right time, and we took advantage of it.
Maybe I'll tell David
Maurice,
Cheng and Mike Longo about it. Maybe they can take their really well-crafted cosplayer costumes down there.
Maybe.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you then. Go ahead, Nick.
Where was it? Yeah, so actually I've got a few different shorts ready to go, scripts written, and it's just a case of finding time to do them because everybody has jobs, everybody has families. It's just a long process trying to get, and I've said this to Sam, every time we're trying to schedule something, it's like herding cats. You'll have like 7 cast and you'll get 6 of them. I can do that date, and then the last one will come, I can't do that. The nice thing about the stuff Sam's doing is because it's really tending to rely on just a couple of actors at a time. It is, and even with that, as Sam said, you have problems. But once you start getting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cast members, it just becomes incredibly difficult. And if you were paying these people to be there and this was their job, great. But they have jobs, they have families, so it's fitting time in around stuff. I mean, I'm fairly lucky that I have a lot of local theatre people who are very keen to do this stuff, but accommodating their work, their family, their theatre time, it's just really difficult.
That's one thing I've sort of become very specialist at, is crafting stories that utilize the most efficient of people versus sets, locations, and thematic stories to generate a full story or being practical. Because Convergence is the horror story of being not filmable because we tried to go big. That's it. If everyone was in England, we could have filmed already. But we went big, and it's been, Pano was obviously the reason, but it's a shame. And the only thing that would make Pursuit any better, in my opinion, would just be maybe 1 or 2 more people in the live action segments between the eras, varying people and DAs, just something else there. But that's it. That's making it longer as well.
And I've said this elsewhere, and I've said this to Sam, I wasn't that keen on making this a Hunter story.
You always say that, but you're so good at what you do, though.
I know, but it's not my preference at all. I've never wanted to make this the Hunter show. But the reality was, I was the only one that was realistically available on short notice and could easily work my schedule around it. So the practicality was it kind of had to be a Hunter story.
Well, in fact, the shoot was so funny that literally you were on holiday for like 3 more days. It was one of the new Trek shows was beginning, probably Lower Decks. So I was instantly going to be slammed. So I was like, either I come on Monday, leave on Tuesday, and start Trek on Wednesday, or we don't do it. So we all said, right, life is happening now. And luckily Matt was available. And the funny thing about Matt is because it was a weekday, he met us, and he literally drove to drop his daughter off at school, then was on set with us, and then left our set to go and pick his daughter up. So that was the time we had with him, was the school day, with half an hour travel either way.
Yeah,
very that is hard what the Guardian of the Deccan Outpost was very doing. Important. Between Nick's visits, was picking up his daughter from school.
But we were very keen because we knew that this is the last, and it was late in the season. So if we don't do it, it won't be done until if we do another one.
I mean, if it had been if it had been a couple of weeks down the line, the weather probably wouldn't have been wet. And it did rain that day. The rain started just as we were finishing. We were shooting the last frames, and it started just lightly raining, and you can see it in one shot. And then we got our costume and headed back to the car, and the skies opened. I mean, we were soaked to the skin. That 10-minute walk to the car, we were drenched.
Because 5 minutes plus 5 minutes plus 5 minutes equal the 25-minute back to the car, or some such. And I remember we were, I had my hat, you had your hood. Okay, great. We've just survived it. Walk back to the car. We start walking.
Yeah.
And we can't run. There's no point running. And our team wasn't very mobile. It was slow. And we get to the car and it was just destroyed. Now, luckily, my camera bag's waterproof. But your kit got very slightly damaged in the process. But it was such a well, this is it. We were very lucky because that sort of film, I could not come back. You could
Yeah.
not match my footage look.
No.
And it couldn't be green screen. So it was
I mean,
absolutely
again,
all or nothing.
it's just luck and happenstance. And actually, the funny thing is, and I said this to Sam at the time, because I think I recorded it and put a little video on Instagram. It's like, it's not an intrepid shoot if there isn't a downpour, because it's almost predictable. If we're going to film outside, at some point it's going to rain. In fact, at some point I should put a comedy jump cut together of all the times we've got rained on. It's just ridiculous.
This shoot was a monsoon level 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't gotten rain since like December.
I mean, you're in Southern California.
I'm in Los Angeles, and we're in a drought. I mean, we're going to probably be rationing water this summer. I had to tell my son.
Yeah.
I said, no more baths. I said, seriously, because I caught him, trying to take a bath the other night. I said, Jaden, seriously, short showers until I tell you different.
Wow.
I mean that, and it's getting really serious here because unfortunately global warming has made the oceans warmer, which has shifted the jet stream higher. And it's the jet stream that usually takes the rain down to us. So in the wintertime, the jet stream shifts down, and Southern California gets its rain for the year, usually between October and April, and then we're done. Well, with the water warmer, the jet stream doesn't go down to us anymore. It just goes here. So, Seattle, Portland, they're doing fine. But we're bone dry. So, and if we have another year or two like this, there's going to be like huge emergencies here in Southern California. So, please fix the global warming. All right, that's your environmental message for the end of the interview here. So anyway, I just wanted to wrap up. Everybody watch Trek Yards as Sam proceeds to analyze every single new starship that is appearing.
That's the other job I have.
That is the other job. That's kind of keeping your bills paid.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, now with a new Star Trek coming on once, possibly even twice a week, you have a lot of ships to cover. So. Yeah, I don't know.
Tech and discussion points. Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. Everything is scheduled. It's a thing. And then you've got Dominion and Romulan War and First Frontier and Aaron Van der Klay's one. I don't know if they announced the name of it, etc., etc. And Farragut now apparently.
Oh yeah, Farragut hired you. So
apparently,
yeah. So.
One of them tomorrow, which is the past of you guys.
Yeah, I actually helped facilitate that, by the way. I was talking to John Broad.
I am somebody, Jonathan. I am somebody.
You are somebody. You are everybody. You are the Quitsat Savarak of Star Trek fans.
Well, it's funny. I did a thing. I worked on about 42 episodes of Trek at this point, fan film Trek, which is quite extreme. That's not including my new stuff that I haven't announced. That's just, if you include that, it'll exponentially increase.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're going to do as a judge for the showrunner awards, because technically you can't vote 1, 2, or 3 for any of the fan films you've worked on.
But the thing is, if it's my CGI, I'm unbiased. It should just be things I don't direct. Because I mean, if you've got 5 things of your own CGI, you can judge them. Which one you think is the best? That's fine. I could be a judge.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Sam's a specialist.
I might win, but it'll be my best one will win.
Exactly. All righty. Well, anyway, gentlemen.
Although,
I would like, sorry.
Last thing.
Right before I wrap this up, go ahead.
Speaking of winning, because Nick mentioned it, I was going to jump in. Didn't the music for this Pursuit of Dream? That is a fan film award-winning music. I've said that to him. I think the level, if there was a category that it will be submitted for, it should win. I've not heard a fan film score for a long time as good. It's phenomenal.
Dylan is I have known Dylan for years, and he is just an incredibly. He wrote our theme. Okay, Dylan wrote and composed and performed our theme years ago, and it's, I love it. It's just amazing. But he spent so long crafting this score for this film, and he's just put so many like callbacks and crafted it to suit the particular theme, suits the era for each scene.
I noticed that was fantastic.
It's just such a good score, and I agree. And Sam and I have discussed this. I think he totally deserves to win an award for that. It's just a beautiful piece of work.
Because most fan film scores, you think, oh, that's nice. You think this is phenomenal. Like I say, it's one of the best I've heard for a long time.
Well, next year it will be eligible for the 2023 Showrunner Awards.
Yeah, we never win anything, so meh.
Different awards, Nick. Different awards.
I know.
Different awards. Yeah, no, we're not talking. There's those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. There are now 3 different fan film exclusive awards. There's the BJOs that are every year, and that's for Star Trek fan films, and then the Director's Choice Awards, which will probably have announced their winners by the time this interview goes out. It's going to be a few weeks until I can get it up. Sounds like a personal problem, but anyway, the there goes Nikki's laughing. I made the Scotsman laugh. And then the Showrunner Awards, which are going to be announced in September, but the submissions are going to be open in the months of April and May. But anyway, 3 different Star Trek fan film places. So, lots of ways you can win. The Showrunner Awards are actually going to have like a first, second, and third place for each category. So at least gives 2 fan films who all, both have really good scores a chance to both get a certificate. So, that's, we'll see if this works, and hopefully it'll be done again next year. So anyway, but gentlemen, I'm going to wrap it up now because I know I've kept you both past your bedtimes, and I want to have
Well, no, I've got to work on track yards in 14 minutes, so.
Okay.
I've got to go to work in the morning.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, but I would like to thank you, mates, for giving me your time, and just keep on track and make more fan films for us because we love them.
That's the plan.
There's a couple in the works.
Thanks for having us.